Hello and welcome to another video, and good morning from a very sunny and summery Toronto. Over my shoulder, Toronto Union Station, one of North America's great train halls. And today we are going to take one of the world's most epic train journeys. We are on Via Rail's train number 1. It's the Canadian and we're off to Vancouver. Via Rail's the Canadian has run the transcontinental route for nearly 70 years. It takes 97 hours and 5 minutes to run westbound using the very same carriages that first ran the route all the way back in 1955. It's North America's longest train route at nearly 4,500 kilometres and is the last surviving public streamliner train. It's a mainstay of Canadian transportation culture, and I remember seeing this train in railway annuals when I was a kid and being captivated. It is incredible. The restaurant cars are the same as they ever were. You can still sit in the same bullet lounge and enjoy a drink, and there are the very same dome cars for the very best views. This train isn't nostalgic, it's a living, breathing institution, still relevant today, and of course it gives you a unique insight into the Canadian landscape. And so, it's time to check in for our train in the year 2022. It's midsummer, and we'll start where the train does, at Toronto Union Station. This station was built as a joint venture between the Canadian Pacific and Grand Trunk Railway companies of the time and opened in 1927. It's quite the building in which to begin one of the world's epic train journeys, with a beautiful train hall. The station serves all of Via Rail's intercity routes from Toronto and acts as a hub for Go Transit, which runs suburban and local services in southern Ontario. It features, like so many Commonwealth Railway terminals, a World War I memorial for workers who never came home. The war is a principal part of Canada's origin story as a modern and sovereign nation. I'm taking a big bag with me as I'm on a much longer trip. These can be checked free of charge. You won't see them again until Vancouver, so bring a second smaller bag for everything you need for 4 nights on the train. The business lounge hosts a reception for passengers and, importantly, is where you'll pick up your first meal reservation, so make sure not to miss out on that. All right, we are ready to go. We are ready to board this train, which will take us 4 days all the way to Vancouver, looking for track 16.
Boarding is done in a much less attractive part of the station, but not to worry, you will soon be greeted by your original 1955 Bud streamliner carriages.
Good morning, bonjour, how are you? What's your car number today?
Just look at these beautiful stainless steel railway cars.
I don't know.
Wow.
Good morning.
Good morning, 110.
110.
That's
You're
me.
going to be up here.
Do you need to see a ticket or anything?
Yes, sir. Stay in your room until I come brief you about the vehicle, and go from there.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
Oh wow, this is exciting. It is 9 o'clock in the morning and it is already 27 degrees. I'm so glad to see this in my little roomette, and we'll definitely want to look out of this.
So far, so good in my one-person sleeper roomette. Let me know how you think this compares to Amtrak. There are 2-person sleepers also available, and they look like this.
We'll do a full room tour later. Not that there's an awful lot of real estate to actually review, but there are a few interesting things about these solo sleepers. This is the lowest class of sleeper accommodation you can get on the Canadian, and it will set you back about $2,000 Canadian in the summer season. But I'm pretty happy with it. I think we're going to be very comfortable.
We depart on time at 9:45, alongside trains bringing in Toronto commuters. It's a low-key start to the trip, but remember, the Canadian is a real, living, breathing service train, Via Rail number 1. The epic route covers 4,466 kilometres across 5 of Canada's provinces. We head across Ontario to Sioux Lookout before driving onwards to Winnipeg. From there we cross the prairies across Manitoba and Saskatchewan, through Alberta and finally into the Rocky Mountains. We arrive in Vancouver at a very early 6 AM, 4 nights later. There are 65 stops, although all but 10 of those are by request only, and this first part of the video takes us to the halfway point, Winnipeg. The trip's first landmark is actually too large and too close to see, the CN Tower, Toronto's most recognisable building, built in fact by the Canadian National Railway Company on the old site of a vast railway marshalling yard. It was, for some time, the world's tallest building. Not long out of Toronto Union, we can first appreciate just how long this train is, a whopping 28 cars long today. Will be powered at some stages by 3 engines, making the whole consist an eye-watering 800 yards long, nearly half a mile. I've got an early lunch sitting. Dining is communal, and as a solo traveller you'll be sat with strangers, which is half the pleasure. Anyone deciding to take a train for 94 hours in one go is worth talking to, in my experience anyway. Plus, lunch is served with a side helping of great views, and if you're lucky, the same fine weather as we had. It's all included in your sleeper ticket, along with non-alcoholic drinks, and the menus change every day. This is not Amtrak. Via Rail has a higher standard of service on its sleeper trains, and the food is better too. Elsewhere on board in the lounge, there's a reception spread, but you really don't want to be downstairs. The views are great from these big picture windows, but you really need to head upstairs into the dome and sit on top of the train. One thing worth mentioning, the train is not an express. It waits, often, for freight trains to pass. But not to worry, that's all in the timetable, and trying to spot the longest freight train can be fun. The dome car itself has 2 and 2 seating. There's ample legroom and fold-down tables complete with cup holders if you grab a beer from the bar. The best time to find a seat is during the meal sittings, by the way. We spend the whole of the first day crossing much of Ontario, a vast province. Over a third of Canada's people live here, but you wouldn't guess that if your only clue was taking a ride on this train. It's extremely rural and sparse. While the train is a regular public service, it does cater to the tourist heavily. There's a shop in the lounge downstairs. Plus, the hosts are also responsible for entertainment. There are usually a few events each day. You shouldn't get bored, but if you need coffee to stay awake, it's free and on tap here. Plus, there are board and card games available in the lounge too. There is no Wi-Fi, which is great. Put your phone down and meet other people, and you will maximize your trip, I promise. Now, I mentioned I'm in the lowest class of sleeper. That's true, but there are other lay-flat accommodations. The section sleeper, or as the French-Canadian translation on the site calls it, a couchette. I agree, these are more like couchettes than a sleeper. These are in fact shared seats in the day and convert to 2 separate private beds at night, like so. These are good value, and I met several people on the train who thought these were great. Today's video is sponsored by Surfshark, an award-winning VPN, virtual private network. Now, there are lots of good reasons to invest in Surfshark, but one of my favourite uses of Surfshark VPN is in accessing blocked content. Most of you know I'm a Liverpool fan, and keeping up with the highlights of their games can be quite tricky when I'm abroad. Either I'm somewhere I literally can't access them on YouTube because no license exists, or I might be somewhere like the USA, where you can watch the highlights, as long as you tolerate American commentary. Now, there's no place like home, and no commentary like British commentary, so by switching my location to the UK, I can watch all the highlights on YouTube perfectly legitimately. The same goes for BBC News. Nearly all Brits have this app, but a lot of the content is video, which isn't approved to watch outside the UK. Frustrating, I pay my TV licence. But again, switch the location, and hey presto, I'm able to watch again, just as I would be at home. You'd be mad not to consider it, especially given the savings on offer. Go to surfshark.deals/wingingit for 83% off and an extra 3 months for free of Surfshark VPN. Parry Sound, Ontario. It's almost like we're flying here as we approach on an elevated trestle, and it's my cue to head downstairs for the beer tasting event, which was free by the way.
Cheers. What do you think, eh?
It's interesting. I wouldn't expect that. It's like a goose and a goose. It's like a sour beer.
Its beer is good, hey?
Yeah, it's good.
After 4 PM, all passengers get to access the exclusive Park Car Bullet Lounge at the back of the train, which is normally reserved for prestige class passengers. This is 3 times the price of what I paid, and I'll show you a room shortly. But the open access in the late afternoon is a well-kept secret. Until now, anyway. The Bullet Lounge has direct access to the dome too, and this one has the very best views on the whole train, being able to see out the back too. But be warned, as of 2023, the train has 3 buffer cars behind this Bullet Lounge due to safety concerns about crashworthiness, and hence the unique rear view will be lost. It's not clear when or if that situation will change. Alright, it's time to show you all the nooks and crannies of my little roomette. Yes, you probably saw this earlier. This is a toilet, but you will probably just want to use the communal one in the car. The bed at night folds down from the wall and covers both seat and toilet. There are clothes hangers, a nice bright light, 2 charge points which worked fine, and a sign to ask the attendant to make up your room in the morning. The room comes with its own stainless steel basin and has its own towel and toiletry kits which you'll need for the shower. These are found in each sleeper car at the end and are shared. We'll take a look at one tomorrow. Oh, and you may also have spotted the curtain when I boarded. Don't worry, there is a door too. It does lock, although only from the inside.
What a beautiful train she is. Look at this. You can really appreciate it in the sunlight now.
At some stops, the train halts for more than a few minutes and you're able to get out and have some fresh air. These are all announced on board, so you shouldn't miss out if you don't know the timetable. Dinner tonight is steak and chocolate mousse, and it's a fine way to round off a very pleasant first day aboard the Canadian. These trees, by the way, are the victim of disease, not forest fire. You can see lots of these on the route. The prestige class rooms are found at the back of the train and can go for 6,000 Canadian dollars a trip. They have the park car to themselves for most of the day, higher quality meals, more personal service, double beds, and much nicer rooms. But even if I had the money, I don't think this would be for me. Sunset is when this train looks most stunning. The shimmering steel, nearly half a mile of it, relentlessly snaking its way towards Vancouver. The train at night is quiet and serene. It's gone 11 PM and I'm off to bed. Tomorrow we complete Ontario and move on to Manitoba and its provincial capital, Winnipeg. The communal showers on board are actually very good, no problem with temperature or pressure, and the attendant keeps them clean and looking smart. I'm an early riser on night trains and I've never had issues with there being a queue or it even being occupied. The communal toilets look like this and are equally pleasant to use.
It's actually really unclear to me exactly what time it is. My phone says it's 6:08 and my watch says it's 5:08, and they're both supposed to have updated overnight, so we're going to find out whether I'm an hour early for breakfast or not.
Breakfast is the only meal on the train not requiring reservations, and the menu for this does stay the same all trip. The beauty of this train trip isn't just the postcard perfect scenery. It's an insight into real Canada and isn't selective about what it shows. You can't escape the industrial nature of the railway, and there are stops in all sorts of places. This is Armstrong, Ontario, just a single person boarding here. It's a rural, plain, humble place by the looks of it, and I can't even get any phone signal here.
I'd like to take that boat out. Anybody want to join me?
Let's go. Oh yes, they do.
Midway through day 2, a momentous sight. The eastbound Canadian meeting us in rural Ontario. 2 mega streamliners side by side. And I don't know if this usually happens, but some items were actually passed from our train to theirs. Let me know if you've any idea why we stopped here. Still, it was magnificent to catch this sight, and the sheer scale of these trains is really something to behold.
Another smoke stop here at Sioux Lookout, and it looks very much like our locomotive is taking on some fuel here. We should be here for about 15-20 minutes. What a lovely day. It's about 26-27 degrees above zero. Fabulous.
Sioux Lookout Station dates from 1911. It's older than Toronto Union, although this original building is sadly no longer operated by the railway. The town was named for its use as a vantage point by First Nations peoples according to the oral history of the Sioux Nation, and was incorporated as a town when the railway arrived. I wonder which is more fun, riding this train or taking off in this seaplane. Thanks for making it this far, and I hope you're enjoying the video. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this, and if you like the video, give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment below. And if you've done this trip, do tell me and let me know how you found it.
Well, look at that, we are still in Ontario. That is insane. We've been travelling for a day and a half and we're still not out of the first province, Ontario. That gives you some idea of the scale of this enormous country.
Cross the border into Manitoba and you're struck immediately by how few trees there are. It's now all mature farmland. Oh, and don't forget to keep an eye out for wildlife by the side of the tracks. This is Winnipeg. We pass over the Red River on our way into the city, which was also a key meeting point for First Nations peoples before the European settlement of Canada, being at the confluence of the Red and Assiniboine rivers, the two water transport superhighways of their day. We have a couple of hours in Winnipeg and you must leave the train here. The staff are all Winnipeg based and will happily tell you where to go.
It's the pedal pub.
They're fellow cyclists.
It's a beautiful evening to walk by the river. Canada is sometimes thought of as a new country, but this place has been a transport nexus for about 6,000 years, as this monument commemorates. And now, on to the pub. You will notice an alcohol theme to this trip, something I only really realised when I edited my footage.
I think we took the same order as before, actually.
That looks good.
You can choose what you want.
All right, guys, here's to the first 2 days on the train. Cheers.
Cheers.
Been a pleasure so far, guys. Cheers.
The forks were originally stables for the railway's horses, and much of the site's original railway heritage can still be seen. Winnipeg Station opened in 1911 and is a fine example of Beaux-Arts architecture and was designed by the same architecture agency that designed Grand Central Terminal in New York. The original Grand Trunk Railway Hotel opposite still stands and is now called Fort Garry.
It's annoying.
As we leave Winnipeg, it's time for a nightcap and downtime. The bar closes at 11:30 p.m. in the Bullet Lounge, and we're in for a real treat. The prairies are showing off one of the typical summer electrical storms, and they are extreme. This is the most intense lightning I have ever seen from the ground, and I'm glad we aren't riding exactly through it. Did I mention the train's made of stainless steel?
That big red spot there. Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's how we make the sangria.
It's a good job we're honest. I don't think this is supposed to be here without a lock.
Welcome to camp.
I can stand out one. People are so honest and just leave the alcohol for free, right?
Merci beaucoup.
And no one's gonna take it.
Cheers!
Cheers again, everyone. Cheers.
Let's get some music started.
Yeah, let's put some music on. Come on.
Aaron got it. I think that's
Cheers.
fine.
Cheers.
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 Cheers, guys.
That's the end of part 1. We're halfway to Vancouver, and in the next part, which will be the next video published on the channel, we take on the last of the prairies and finally enter Alberta and BC, the Rocky Mountains, and the most breathtaking part of the route. I hope you'll join me in part 2. Of course, don't forget to go to surfshark.deals/wingingit for 83% off and 3 months extra for free of Surfshark VPN. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next video.